Hello dear UPSC aspirants, I am Akriti Kanchi, your mentor from Prep IS. I'm trying to make your newspaper reading as easy as possible and as relevant as possible, right? Today is 6th March and we are ready with our must-read articles and our analysis. So let's start with the front page. So front page, we're talking about US-India bilateral relations, which comes under GS paper 2. You know, the last 3 points of GS paper 2. So US will impose reciprocal tariffs from April 2. What is reciprocal tariffs? Developing country like India, Mexico, put a lot of, tariffs on imports, okay, so that we can save our own domestic manufacturing companies, so that we can grow even when our industries are not at a mature stage, that we try to protect our own, less mature nascent stage industries. But that US is not liking as Trump, because US is a very capitalist economy. It is not ready to face losses. So US president terms high levies by India, others as high levies by India and other countries as very unfair, okay, and they have announced reciprocal tariffs. So you can see here there is a trade deficit between India and USA, where India is on the benefiting side. So India total exports to US is $52.9 billion. We are exporting to US $52.9 billion. The top export of ours is electrical machinery, second is precious stones and metals, and third is pharmaceuticals. And the import from there is $29.6 billion, right? And what we are importing the highest, that is mineral fuels and oils. Second is precious stones and metals. So both in import and export, precious stones and metals is second with USA, right? And third largest import is nuclear reactors and boilers, okay? So these are the imports that India takes from USA. This should be there in your mind. This kind of questions can come in prelims and can be used in mains, India US kind of questions. Okay, let's move to the next article. Yeah, so this article is important from scheme's point of view. Little progress in centralizing administration of 𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐿𝐴 schools. So 𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐿𝐴 schools are schools that government have brought for the tribals children for their development, okay, all-round development. This comes under GS paper 2. Welfare schemes for vulnerable sections, here being tribals. So 5 years after center, brought fresh guidelines to elevate its flagship. What is the full form? 𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐿𝐴 Model Residential Schools, EMRS. 𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐿𝐴 Model Residential Schools for tribal children. The government was trying to bring the standards of 𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐿𝐴 schools at par with Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas. Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas schooling standards and academic standards are good. So they were trying to bring it on par, like by bringing quality staffs, quality administration, and everything like that. But the article is saying the administration, the efforts are still not completed by the government. Okay, you should know about 𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐿𝐴 Model Residential Schools. Let's move to the next article. We come to the editorial page here. About this we had discussed, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, humor perversity. Okay, so again, a comedian, a YouTube comedian was charged by police and the entire society, and there was a lot of controversy on Twitter and social media, right, that what they are doing and harming the nation and all, right? So for that, the Supreme Court had told that there should be some regulatory measures and government should plan some regulatory measures. Supreme Court told the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, right? So here this comes under GS paper 2, fundamental rights, Article 19, right to freedom of speech and expression, right? So this article is saying that we don't need to bring more regulatory measures because we already have a lot of acts surrounding it. Okay, so you should know what all acts are there for controlling and censorship of right to freedom of speech and expression. So the article is saying the court has sounded the right note by calling for a discussion among stakeholders on regulations that would not impinge on the freedom of speech and expressions. But it is saying that it was not required because there are several laws already, like Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, display of content in electronic form shall be deemed to be obscene if it is lascivious or appeals to the prurient interest. It is written in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and it's a punishable offense. Similar penal provisions are there in the IT Act. The program code under the cable television network rules prohibit programs that offend decency, among other things. Fourth is information technology Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021, which provide for age-based classification and a three-tier system of grievance redressal. Okay, and there is also a self-regulatory body and a government interdepartmental committee. So all these 5-6 things are there already, but still we are not able to do. That means there is something in lack of control, right? So a mature society should consider whether anyone should go to prison for such a verbal offense. And it's also saying that an extreme case such as this does evoke extreme reactions, but law enforcement and legal institutions should not be overzealous. So directly killing and prison and giving the death sentence is not a good idea. But how to control these things should be the first thing to be done. Let's move to the next article. Next article, Warriors of Hope. Warriors of Hope, very important from UPSC point of view, comes under GS paper 2, issues related to health sector. So what this article is about, ASHA workers. ASHA workers, you should know what is the full form of ASHA workers. The government decided to call them ASHA. What is the full form? Accredited Social Health Activists. ASHA Hindi mein matlab hope, right? Hope in English. So in 2005, the center launched the National Rural Health Mission, NRHM, and nominated ASHAs to be the link between the community and the public healthcare delivery system. So somebody in between who will take people to the hospitals for institutional delivery, things like that, right? So there are several ASHAs in the country, several, right? And they have done a great work, especially in women-related areas like recording birth rate, death data, implementing interventions in non-communicable diseases, communicable diseases, especially maternal health, newborn, child and adolescent health, monitoring health, hygiene and sanitation. Especially they were chosen for the WHO Director General's Global Health Leaders Award in 2022 for their contribution in pandemic. They were given this outstanding contribution towards protecting and promoting health award, right? So they have been internationally recognized as well, right? But the problem is they still are on very small salaries. That is what the writer is trying to say, that 20 years after ASHAs were created, they are still on very low money, meager fixed salary from center, and some of the compensation by, center and state. So the editor is saying that they should try to give them salary and emoluments comparable to the government servants. Okay, let's move to the next article. So this article is very important and gives you a good way of seeing at things. DeepSeek's market disruption must awaken India. चाइना के इतने अमेजिंग चीज़ों से जो अमेजिंग R&D कर रही है चाइना, what should India learn from it, right? DeepSeek's market disruption must awaken India. It comes under GS paper 3, science and technology, India's contribution to R&D, what India is doing. It can also come under GS paper 2, how other countries are investing in R&D and going much ahead of us, right? So if they'll be economically more advanced than us, India cannot fight them in borders as well, right? So China is doing great. DeepSeek, a Chinese company, has shaken up the global tech industry and stock market with its low-cost artificial intelligence model, right? So this breakthrough has critics to reconsider, because earlier US was considered the leader, the forerunner in AI, but now China is coming closer to it. So people are thinking, who is the leader in this area, right? Who will dominate in the field of AI? So, and now right now DeepSeek is playing quite on par with ChatGPT. Okay, so how does DeepSeek's innovation affect India? So how this will affect India's interest, right? The problem is India's benefit till now in the IT sector was our, English speaking and tech learning, human resource who were working in this MNCs and IT firms, right? So IT sector, which has been built on its competitive edge through an abundant supply of skilled English speaking and cost effective labor. That was our advantage for IT industry and for so many jobs in IT industry, okay? But this DeepSeek and AI intelligence will eliminate both skill and language barriers. So till now, Chinese people were not, Chinese youth were not like India's youth who could speak English and do some skilled work for US companies. But now with this app, they don't need to speak English. They don't need to do this. They don't need to be, English speaking person. They can do it with their technology itself. Okay, so that barrier has removed. So this DeepSeek can, has accelerated the rise of cheaper, more efficient alternatives that can replace low-cost IT service providers at an accelerated pace, which is a serious threat to India's IT dominance. Okay, so our IT, so many kids of our society who are working in IT companies will it won't be that easy in coming years. Okay, so what should India learn from it? Biggest lesson for India is, for the companies, for the government, is to invest in R&D. Very interesting thing is, DeepSeek company was not a core AI company. It was mainly a financial trading company. But as a sidekick, as a side thing, they thought to invest in the AI part. And that came out to be really successful, right? So they spent in R&D, which even if it would fail, they would not, they were not concerned with it. They were not spending on something with the pressure of giving results. Okay, so that kind of R&D is required in India. So that kind of investment, where even if you're spending in R&D and if it fails, that kind of steps should be taken in India, and that's where we are lacking, right? So DeepSeek's approach of treating AI development as a secondary initiative reflects its willingness to take risk without expecting guaranteed returns. So in India, if anybody is spending a little bit money, they want guaranteed returns, and research and development do not work like that, right? They come someday, they may not come someday. The scientists and inventors know very well. So India needs to work here. India's gross domestic expenditure on R&D is below 1%, so less, below 1%. Whereas according to UNESCO Institute for Statistics data, China invested around 2.43% of its GDP in R&D in 2021. Right, in just in R&D. India's need for urgent policy is required here, right? And in India does not need to choose between manufacturing and services. They need to go together with each other. So focus should shift towards workforce that enhances productivity. And the editor is saying, since AI, there, China has already taken dominance, but at least in the next major technological frontier, which is quantum computing race, India should make sure that we have a technological leadership in the area of quantum computing. It's going to be a big deal also. Let's move to the next article. Right, so this article is more important from diversity point of view, indigenous people, and you can use it in essay, right? So we'll do it fast. Who will apologize to the Himalayans, right? So GS paper 1, diversity of India, indigenous people. We are supposed to respect tribals, indigenous people, their way of life. This kind of superiority in us, that our mainstream way of living life, the way we eat, English speaking, and typical type of academics, that Western way of living life is superior to tribals' way of life, is not a right thought. Right now, a lot of countries are accepting it. Right, Norway's parliament issued a formal apology for its assimilation policy targeting their tribes, Sami, Kven, Forest Fen peoples. So in the word called Norwegianization. So they were trying to make everybody similar during 1850s to 1960s, Norway, right? So in that, they suppressed indigenous cultures, languages, and a lot of very nice culture which is suitable to certain climate and society was getting eliminated, right? So the government proposed measures to address ongoing discrimination and bring some inclusion efforts. Though Norway has repealed discriminatory laws and established symbolic rights, but still some issues remain. So this writer is bringing similar problem for India. In India also it has happened. The Himalayan, the tribes in the Himalayan people and mountain people have been discriminated against. Like Himalayan region has a lot of people, right? And they have faced climate induced disasters and centuries of resource exploitation. They have here mentioned the tribes, the Gaddis and Kinnaurs in Himachal, Lepchas, Bhutias, and Mons in Sikkim. You should know these tribes. Gaddis, Kinnaurs in Himachal, Lepchas, Bhutias, and Mons in Sikkim and Ladakh, both, right? And Arunachal Pradesh, Abor, Aka, Apatami, and Mishmi. These are hills also. There are hills also in Arunachal Pradesh, which are on the name of the tribes, okay? Abor, Aka, Apatani, and Mishmi. They have faced waves of assimilation through colonialism by Britishers, post-independence, nation building, and neoliberal economic policies. This is what the writer is saying. Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand's forests were cut for the railways, timber, to apply timber for railways in India. So a lot of forest was eliminated, which was not right? So the Sal forest of Garhwal and Kumaon were felled in even to desolation. It was finished, the Sal forest, right? Although Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru showed quite a respect for tribal people, but it was not followed up on the later years. Okay, so all the states had to bring more resources. So all the Himalayan states started working on, encouraging tourism and hydropower sector. That led to even more disasters there, right? So such projects often bypass local laws, undermining tribal land ownership governed by customary practices. So these are issues that infringe on the lives of indigenous people that you can use in answers, essays, and diversity related questions. Let's move to the next article. This article we're just supposed to see in the brief of what is happening in the world. Okay, a brief history of the Russia-Ukraine war. After right now we saw the Ukraine president and US president and spat on the worldwide television, right? So this comes under effect of policies of developed country affecting India. So what has happened when Russian President Vladimir Putin launched the invasion of Ukraine in Feb 2022, so around 2 years back? He probably thought the war would be over within days, since Ukraine is a small country, right? But Ukraine Western partners also thought the same, that it will be over soon, right? But US under Biden administration started supplying a lot of weapons to Ukraine, which led to biting sanctions on Russia. Both things, that gave weapons to Ukraine and sanctions against Russia, which made Russia weaker and Ukraine stronger. That led to teeth to teeth fight with Russians, okay, on the battlefield. Now US is again trying to since Trump has come and Biden has gone, they are reversing their policy. This is because Trump is seeing the, they want to be the superpower. They want to keep being the superpower. And according to Trump, Russia is not the main problem. China is the real threat. So if they keep diverting their resources to Ukraine against Russia, China will keep growing and Russia will collide with China and they'll become even bigger, right? So his actions suggest a shifting US worldview. According to them, they want to target China and not Russia, and they want to be the bigger player always, right? That is what this article is about. You should know what bigger things are going in the minds of these people. Let's move to the next article. There's a good article about CAG, very important article from GS paper 2, financial status of states and center. CAG Finance Commission hold consultation on public finances fiscal challenges. So two constitutional bodies are meeting, okay? And I want to ask you guys a question. If you know the article under which CAG is mentioned in the Constitution and Finance Commission, please mention in the comments CAG's article and Finance Commission article, okay? I'll tell you next day, tomorrow, in the tomorrow's current affair newspaper analysis. This comes under GS paper 2, constitutional bodies, functions and responsibilities, okay? So CAG, 𝐞 Sanjay has had meeting with the 16th Finance Commission with the chairperson Arvind Panagria. This high-level consultation formed a critical part of the Commission's ongoing assessment on 3 key areas: union and state finances, local bodies, and public sector enterprises. These were their main discussion. CAG shared various audit findings for the union and states. So what were the suggestions? He drew attention to the need for regular reporting of off-budget borrowings meeting the FRBM Act targets, okay, and taking into account post-audit liabilities. CAG also recommended including regular updates to market value guidelines, improved classification of property types to increase state taxes, and the adoption of modern technology such as sensor-based system and QR codes to minimize revenue leakages and improve data accuracy. How to increase the taxes and how to minimize the leakage and how to increase the financial health of states and center. Right? In GST also, CAG has recommendation like widening the tax base, enhancing transparency, involving the integration of unregistered goods and service providers, real-time information system, along with improvised taxpayer verification process. Something for lower, third level local bodies, standardization of accounting practices at all tiers of the government, okay, and local body use of integrated financial management system, IFSM. These are recommendation of CAG that you can surely use in the answers for local self-government, what CAG has recommended in the conclusion of the answer. Okay, let's move to the next article. Next article, yeah, a small article, more important from prelims point of view. Reserve Bank to buy 1 lakh crore of government securities, okay? So you should know what is government securities, okay? Government securities is a way government, try to earn, not earn, government try to take money to do several projects it wants to do, right? And RBI generally does this auction for GSEC, government securities, and the platform on which they do is 𝐸𝐶𝐵ER, core banking system platform. Okay, should know this basic data: what is GSEC, who does it, and on which platform it is done. Let's move to the last article of the day. Yeah, so this is again about US domination and what are the issues being happening about the space debris. And so there is a competition amongst all countries to do best in the space, right? Moon, Mars, Sun, so many missions are going on and everybody wants to be the dominator there. But there are several issues that can harm us. Sometimes something drops over somebody, in right now in Kenya, December 2024, a metal object was fallen there, of SpaceX only, but nobody took the responsibility, right? Similarly, one thing was some SpaceX things was fell in the Poland, nobody took the responsibility. So who will take the responsibility of of the problems that will arise from the space competition, right? This is what his article is about. This comes under GS paper 3, awareness in the field of space. Despite being a critical issue in space governance, space debris lacks a universally accepted legal definition. Thus, legal disputes whether a piece of debris qualifies as a space object under the Convention for International Liability for damage caused by space objects of 1972. Also, this is the issue. Nobody is taking the responsibility. So, you should know what are the legal acts related to it, right? So, there is no standard definition, right? So there are some acts like Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, COPUOS. Okay, UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, which has tried to define space debris but not up to the satisfaction. Right? There is another treaty called Convention for International Liability for Damage Caused by Space Objects of 1972, and the last is Article 7 of the Outer Space Treaty 1967 forms the cornerstone of international space laws. Okay, so these are the some conventions and treaties that you should know, but they do not have binding rules. They do not have any organization or institution that can enforce the laws that countries are supposed to follow. For example, there was a case of Soviet satellite Cosmos 954, which was carrying a nuclear reactor and it fell in Canada, crashed in Canada. A lot of losses were there. The fight went on for years and they hardly gave 50% of compensation that they were supposed to. So these kind of issues, who will look after it when it happens to countries? There's nobody to see. If something happens within the country, the court of the country, the executive of the country takes care of it. But who will does and do it in the international stage? That's the problem. That's the issue. There is the gap in the governance. There is gap in space governance. Okay, that's what is the article about. Pieces from a SpaceX rocket landed in Poland, but the American agency said it is not their responsibility, right? And rapid growth of satellite mega constellations such as SpaceX, Starlink, Amazon Kuiper, you should know this, Eutelsat's OneWeb are going to add 1 lakh satellites by 2030, which will lead to bigger such problems, right? So the world needs stronger regulations. National government should strengthen domestic policies requiring companies to adopt debris mitigation. Debris are the waste of the satellites which falls here and there, right? Disposal rules should be mandatory and as well as require space flight entities to have controlled re-entries. And there's a graveyard orbit, right, where defunct satellites are moved to avoid colliding with other satellites. So they should be properly discarded to graveyard orbits. Okay, an improved tracking system should be there. This is what this article is about. That's it for 6th March. Thank you.